2 years ago, on October 7, 2023, Israel faced its darkest day since the Holocaust. It was a day in which thousands of Hamas terrorists, joined by civilians, tore down the Gaza border fence and stormed into Israel. In a frenzied orgy of violence, they raped and they murdered and they mutilated innocent people in the most savage and cruel ways imaginable. This included burning families alive and killing children in front of their parents and parents in front of their children. 1,200 men, women and children were killed that day, and a further 251 were kidnapped, of which 48 still remain in the dungeons of Gaza after all this time. And these were not acts of rage, but of joy, because they celebrated it by filming the atrocities on GoPro cameras. They were proud of what they did. Now, you'd think such horror would unite the world in outrage, as it should, but no, that's not what happened. Instead, even as the blood was still warm and bodies still lay in the streets, celebrations broke out in London, New York, and in Sydney. Within days, Jewish communities everywhere found themselves under siege, feeling the shockwave of this latest Jew hatred sweeping through the world like a tsunami, hitting the shores and crushing everything in its path. In Australia, like around the world, Jewish businesses were attacked and synagogues vandalized. Australia's image of a once tolerant society was shattered after video of a baying crowd threatening Jews on the steps of the Sydney Opera House, Australia's most iconic landmark, went global. 2 years since that day, anti-Semitism has become so normalized that attacks, arson and abuse on Jewish targets seldom even make the news anymore. Now, October 7 was a war on Israel, but was also a war on Jews everywhere, stripping away the illusion that we were safe and secure in the great Western democracies that value peace, tolerance and coexistence. But even in the darkness of October 7, something else happened, something profound, almost mystical. Jews who had never lit Shabbat candles before began to do so now. Jews who had always hidden their identity now began to wear Star of David necklaces openly, just like the way I always wear mine. A type of reawakening occurred, igniting a pride that most Jews felt strongly inside. And that pride was fueled by seeing how Israel, the world's only Jewish state, a tiny sliver of land making up just a tiny fraction of less than 1% of the Middle East, was fighting back, virtually alone. It was fighting against the combined might of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the militias in Syria and Iraq, and the arch-terror orchestrator itself, Iran. And not only on the military front, but in the diplomatic arena too, against the corrupted institutions of the UN, the ICC and the AIJAC. This was David versus Goliath once again. Now, disappointingly, and to their great shame, Western democracies like France, Canada, Britain and Australia, who should have stood shoulder to shoulder with Israel, chose instead to isolate it and criticize, even as Israel was fighting for the very values they say they uphold. In a time to choose strength and moral clarity, they chose weakness and moral confusion. In a time to choose honor, they chose dishonor. Now, on the verge of possible peace, there's a cautious hope, but that's far from definite. Because when you deal with a death cult, you must never forget who they are and what they did 2 years ago, and have promised to do again if given the opportunity. Well, October 7 taught us is not a new lesson, but an old one, that when Jews are massacred, too many people celebrate, too many people excuse, and too many people remain silent. When this conflict does finally end, the aftermath will have left deep wounds that will take many years to heal. They will leave behind scars that may fade in time, but will never truly disappear. And those scars are a reminder that Jewish survival can never depend on the goodwill of others, but only on eternal vigilance and strength and pride in who we are, along with the sacrifices of all those who fight to protect our Jewish homeland every day against the monsters who want to destroy it and the Jewish people.